Hello and welcome to the top 10 DPS for June 22 and DC Worlds Collide. I am Dogbert. I will not be doing a top 10 tanks for June 2022, but I will be doing top 10 support. The reason being, for the tanks, nothing has changed since May. The support has had some changes though. And of course DPS has some changes as well. That's obviously why I'm doing this video. So with all this out of the way, let's go and take a look at the top 10 for June 2022. So coming in at number 10 is a newcomer, Red Hood. You might not be even thinking about this guy, but it's mostly because of his tactical renaissance here. At the start of battle, crit and crit damage increases by 20%. This will get even higher once you rank him up to level 10. And then it gradually goes to 0 by the end of turn 3. This is great for short burst fights, especially if you're using like a Wonder Woman green arrow with him. That's mostly for arena that people would use him, but he can also be effective in some of the main stages and some of the system recovery stages where you just need another character who happens to be green, and he can revive himself. And when he revives himself, he gives a free ultimate, if you've never seen that. So his ultimate attack, he's mostly a single target damage type guy. It's interesting that the final strike on his ultimate is always a crit, but his main ability, he also, when he revives, he also gets a stack of Frantic permanently, so you kind of like almost want him to die. He's an interesting character, and he is in at number 10 this month. Moving on to number 9. Moving down to number 9 is Dr. Fate. Unfortunately, he is part of the self-sacrifice team, and that kind of hurts him too, because he's got to have his teammates take damage in order to really ramp up his skills and rank up his attack power. Go to his skills, you'll see that he needs to sacrifice, plus his ultimate needs to sacrifice 10% of their power. He's just somebody who needs to be in a later fight in order to do his massive damage, unfortunately. Because each time an ally goes lower than 60%, he gets 9% attack, and this increases as you level him up. But unfortunately, on top of being a legendary, which makes him very hard to get the shards for him to rank him up, and him needing to go longer into battle and have his allies take damage and essentially drop and heal back up, it puts him down at number 9, but when he does get up there, he does do quite a bit of damage. Moving on to number 8. At number 8 is another legendary character, and that is Sinestro. Sinestro is good on a debuff team. He very much needs that debuff team. That's one of the things holding him back, is that he needs that debuff team. But I do use him in guild challenges. He can be quite good there. And the other problem with him is he absolutely needs to be rank 8 to really get the most out of him. This requires, of course, legendary summons. This means you're probably going to be using 8th metal, since you can't get his shards anywhere else. That's the unfortunate things about him. But once you do that, the ultimate becomes much more tolerable, because once you have enough rounds, 6 fear rounds, this goes from a 4 energy ultimate down to a 3. That's another thing that's holding him back, because he's the only 4 energy ultimate in the game right now. But like I said, once you get him to rank 8, you can reduce that right here. Once you get reaches 6 stacks, you can get it down to a 3 like normal. But his reliance is debuff team, the 4 energy cost beforehand, and this hard to get shards keeps him at number 8 for now. Moving on to number 7. Yeah, number 7 is a character I don't own, so I have to hire him as a mercenary to test him out and see him in Elseworld as well. Is Deathstroke. He kind of got a phantom buff we didn't really notice, and I didn't notice that I was using him in Elseworld one day. I had to go back and hire the mercenary out of somebody else who had him and get their feedback also on him. But his ultimate has gone from a 2 energy to a 1, which is actually quite huge. I mean, being able to just use 1 energy is quite good. This has sped him up even more, making him even faster than he was before, which is hard to believe. His downsides, of course, is being a legendary again. Hard to get his shards, can't really get him anywhere. And he's also more of a single target damage. But he does put up multiple attacks. He does hit some multiple targets sometimes with the bleeds. But it's mostly, he's based off those bleeds. He really needs to be on a bleed team. Other than that, he doesn't really do much with his ultimate. But costing 1 has definitely moved him up to this rank, number 7. Moving on to number 6. So coming in at number 6 is Green Arrow. He is falling off a little bit. His damage isn't as quite as good anymore because that's all he does is damage. And some of these characters that we're going to see that come before him now just do a little bit more, give us a little bit more than just damage like him. Plus artifacts are helping them out. They're not helping him as much because if you look at his ultimate, it's just a percentage basis of attacks, whereas those artifacts are giving much more bigger boost to the other DPS ahead of him right now. Not to say he's not a good character, I'm not saying he's not worth investing in. It's just that his damage isn't going to be as high as some of the other characters on this list, and that is their job DPS, but they also add some other utility as well. So that's why he has fallen to number 6, but he's still quite good. This is essentially God tier level from here on out yet. Let's move on to number 5. And number 5 is another character I don't own, wish I did, was the Flash. He has actually fallen quite a bit. The reason being, even in Arena, now they have put some different Arena buffs in there, which has made him less useful. But the fact that he goes right away and knocks back Turn Beater is still incredibly useful. Could even be used in the guild challenges. His damage is kind of falling off. Pretty much all he does is damage. The one downside is in order to activate that one ultimate where he comes back to life, he has to be the last man standing. Unfortunately, his damage is okay, not great. There's just better out there right now. And unfortunately, unless they change the arena or something, or if we get some other modes that make him even more valuable, he's going to unfortunately drop down to number 5 for now. But he's still a great character. If you got him, definitely build him. It's just better out there. Moving on to number 4. At number 4, going up, is Constantine. He has finally broken that. Artifacts have actually made him quite better, especially the Power Crystal. If you put that on him, that's what a lot of people are doing. But in reality, you could also put the Lasso on him. They're pretty much universal artifacts in what they do, but the Crystal really seems to be made more for him than anything, in that it's increasing his damage amplification. This is making big Constantines really put out some major damage. Almost getting up to like Killer Frost type levels of damage. It is insane, or Wonder Woman even, what now he can do. But his self-sacrifice mechanic keeps him a little bit lower because he's constantly damaging you and making your whole team take damage whenever they take a turn as well. That's what keeps him at number 4, but definitely God tier. Definitely want to build him. Moving to number 3. Hit at number 3 is Green Lantern Hal Jordan. This guy is phenomenal. Artifacts made him better. The Mega Rod is what I'm running on him because on his second use of his ultimate, they increases the status damage, the damage that he does of the ultimate. Gains 15% damage amplification up to 30%. He does multiple damage in his ultimate, of course. That's why you want that. He's better in longer fights, but the other thing is he's pretty tanky because he's giving you and your team shields. On top of this, he can dispel debuffs with his basic off of himself. I've actually found him to be the one DPS I would want to cross from a Damian Wayne Robin, because he can actually survive that, clear the bleeds off that might kill the character otherwise, plus put shields back on himself. His only downside is he does absorb that shield for extra attack power, which could help hurt his survivability a little bit, but like I said, he gets that shield right back, and he's generally pretty quick, gets the shield up on everybody else, and really this helps out the team, on top of putting out pretty good damage. Not the best damage, but very good damage. And if once you get down to like a single or two target, he can put out a massive amount of damage onto them. His AoE is pretty good. His emblem is good. If you get that ranked up as much as you can. He's just an overall very good character. That's why he's in at number 3. But there's 2 better than him. Let's go and take a look at number 2 as we get into some controversy possibly. In at number 2 is probably the Queen of Arena, and that is Wonder Woman. She is she is definitely legendary, that is for sure. She has just gotten better with artifacts because the lasso, which obviously is the best one for her, is giving her that increased crit chance for 100% on the first time she strikes with the ultimate, so she can put out those stuns. Ranking it up, now you get silence for 2 rounds, and if you head it up to rank 3, you get silence extended for 3 rounds, and inflicts silence up to 3 targets instead. The lasso is the power, though. Don't forget, the lasso doesn't have to be on Wonder Woman. It can go to any character and do that to anybody. This is making people think that Wonder Woman's, unfortunately, better than she is. I mean, she's really, really a great character. She's probably number 2 best character in the game, but she is not number 1. We'll get to number 1 in a second. The lasso is what's powering her up so much more now and making her even more deadly than she was before, along with her kit with all the crit damage. She's very good in short fights. She will be number 1 DPS in shorter fights, but as we know, with later main stages, you need to survive longer. The fights are going to be much longer. Then she starts dropping off. And like I said, don't forget this lasso can go to anybody, so anybody could do those things once they had this lasso. It's actually kind of a little bit of a hurt on the silence thing since she already does a silence. But you might get some extra targets, you might not. It's kind of random, it's RNG. She is incredibly good. She is on the tankier side due to her skills here. If you look at her passive, every 1% crit, she gets damage reduction of 0.3%, all the way up to 24%. You're going to be looking at probably maxing this out as much as you can, because all you do is you put on crit on her. She's very reliant on crit, and her crit damage gets better and better. The other thing holding her back is, of course, being a legendary, so her shards are a little bit harder to get. She's a little bit easier to get because you can buy her shards in the one store. I forget which store it is. It might be unrestricted arena. I think it's unrestricted arena, where you can get 10 shards of her every cooldown. But other than that, she's incredibly good. And you pair her up with the plane on top of it. But again, the plane affects everybody, not just her. Of course, if you've got parallax into her, she'll do even more, making her look like she's doing the most damage. But in reality, if you're focusing on her, yes, she will be your number 1 character, and yes, she will do the most damage, but there is a character who can out-damage her as we go to number 1. Sorry about that misclick. And here is number 1 still, and that is Killer Frost. An epic character, absolutely amazing, easier to get because she is an epic character. You have different ways of getting her shards, whether it be from the purples and using desired, whether it be from the rainbow tokens and getting there. You have multiple areas where you can just pick which epic character you want to get shards for, making her a bit easier to rank up than a legendary. On top of this, her emblem is absolutely crazy what it does, especially if you can get it up to rank 3. So she's always in her burst rate. You also don't really need to use the ultimate for her to be the top DPS. You could literally have her sit there the entire battle, never use her ultimate, and she would still be number 1 DPS. Although most people are putting the wrist sniper on her, because a lot of people are using Killer Frost and Wonder Woman together, obviously, 2 best characters in the game for highest DPS. If you actually put the lasso on Killer Frost, she will perform amazingly and will start making Wonder Woman quake in her boots, because the amount of damage she does then just goes absolutely insane. Plus now she's doing silences with that lasso. It might even be better to put the lasso on Killer Frost and switch it up a little bit, because like I said, Wonder Woman already has that silence in her kit. It's kind of redundant. This gives Killer Frost a chance to use it and amp her up on her crit damage on her first ultimate. Might get a little bit wasted because she doesn't really do damage with her ultimate, but the amount of damage she does is absolutely insane. She is just an insane character. Best character in the game, in my opinion, right now. She is number 1 DPS. If you get her, build her, obviously. Until next time, everybody, hope this list is helpful and informative.